everyone. Welcome once again. We are on Cars Casually number 7, which is a big surprise to all of us. We are here with the Cars Casually gang. We have got Nix, we have got Chris, we have got Paolo, we have got Gerard, and apparently I don't identify myself. I'm Carl. Hello. Today we're going to talk about something that's actually far more important than people realize. When in the model life of a car, you actually buy the car, okay? And this is important because a lot of people like to buy the first car, first time it comes out. That has advantages. For one thing, the car companies like it because they consider the initial buyer, the buyer who buys early in the model life, they consider them the most loyal buyer because they will buy automatically when it comes out new. The positives are you have let's say if the car model life is 7 years or 5 years, then you have a long time where that's the new model car if you want to sell it, okay? The negatives are sometimes the technology isn't all that sorted out, especially nowadays when cars are coming to market more quickly. Sometimes that isn't sorted out so well, so you have little glitches. The reverse there is at the end of the model life. If, for example, and I've done this, for example, that the incoming Subaru Legacies will have that's our example, right? The outgoing Subaru Legacies would be switched to the new engines, which means you have smaller engines. You had a change in the transmission. So I chose to buy an outgoing, not even outgoing, but I knew a year ahead of time, a model where I have an old school engine, an old school transmission, which I'm fine with because that's the car to me. So I chose not to get the new stuff. That's one example. The positive there is the car is basically all sorted out. Any little issues you have, everybody's known them. They've been servicing these cars for 7 years, so that's fine. Or you buy somewhere in the middle, which is the example we're going to be giving later with the new Toyota Hilux, which is a mid-model refresh. And there's a lot to be said there. In the mid-model refresh, for a lot of companies, that's actually the biggest deal because they have sorted out stuff. They've added stuff. They're making tweaks to things like the way the transmission works or the way the engine fires that bring in a lot of power. Lexus is a very good example of this. They make mid-model life changes that are extremely good and change the character of the car, especially for cars like the IS. And they don't often communicate this. And there's a reason they don't communicate it. So anyway, we are now going to discuss all of this. I hope we have not confused you too much. We are now going to throw to Nix to explain a few things. Hello, Nix, and good morning.
Okay. So with the recent launch of the Toyota Hilux, our team decided to talk about it because it this is not going to be the last time that people will talk about it. Like the cars upcoming, we're going to be talking about this on whether if you know that the car a facelift's imminent, do you buy the current one or do you wait for the facelift to come? And the surprising thing is when I started in this industry 2011, usually when it's a facelift, it's literally a facelift. So you have the same engine, same transmission. So that's why they call it facelifts. But now we're seeing a trend where when they've extended the car life from 5 years now up to 7-8 years, but in the middle they do upgrades. We've seen it with the Genesis Coupe, we've seen it with the Ford Focus, and we're seeing it here the Hilux even on the big players now. We have to balance that out between introductory prices, price differences, and then we have to balance out with what we get. So looking back, during the 2015, the Hilux offered a G model, which is worth 1.685 on July 2015. But surprisingly, now they don't anymore sell the G model, if I'm not mistaken. Gerard?
They have a manual G model, although the main highlight of the new Hilux is a Conquest, which has all the upgraded engine, which has 200 brake horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, which puts it, in the territory of the Raptor, Colorado, and some others. So that's what they're highlighting. Yeah.
About you, Chris, what trends have you been seeing on this kind of thing?
Usually, what matters most when you're talking about a car life is more of the generation cycle, right? A car will have different refreshes, like you mentioned, and these are usually minor, usually aesthetic, or they'll change the sound system. The most significant changes are when a car enters into a next generation. Now, that's when sometimes the platform changes, major structural changes are there.
Yeah.
And this from what I've noticed, this happens every 7 years, on average, about 7 years. I was just looking at the Honda Jazz lately, and I was wondering if there was a pattern to see when they would change generations. Since the new generation Jazz was announced in Tokyo Motor Show last year,
Yep.
and we should be seeing that
Yeah.
and pretty soon, if not
Mhm.
this year, definitely next year. And it looks completely different. It's a completely new generation, and I was checking when the last Jazz came out, and it was about 7 years ago. So yeah, if we're talking about
Yeah.
trends,
It's
Seven
extended actually.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
They extended
Yeah.
it.
Before it was around 4 to 5.
That's
Yeah.
Okay,
true.
Paula, you're the
Yeah.
youngest guy here. Did you know that this was a factor in buying a car when in the model life? Was it something you ever thought about?
Actually, this kind of thought process only came to me when I entered C. Like I didn't give much thought into it. I would know there are facelifts, but I would only see the aesthetics like new headlights, new grille, but I didn't really check. I didn't really know that they would subtly change like the sound system and all that. That's something I learned recently only. Like for example, the Hilux, it has a new 8-inch touchscreen,
Mm-hmm.
and the higher variants now have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So
And
that's something I didn't really know before. That's something I would have to research back then.
Okay, so what did you do? Any of you guys think this is an important factor in when you buy a car, or do you just kind of will you just buy it whenever you need it?
Well, it depends
Or
on the person. Like, for
Yeah.
example, our Subaru Forester, when we got it, it was a pre-facelifted model, which my mom didn't really care about, aesthetics and all. For her, it's still the same Forester. So, it depends on the buyer, I guess.
Yep.
Depends on your priorities. Yeah.
In line with Jared's answer, like it really depends on the person's budget. What are the priorities? Like, are you someone
That's true too.
who's into
Okay.
technology, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if the price of the facelift isn't too far to it, like I would consider it. But like if there's a big jump and I'm not willing to go to make that jump, I wouldn't mind getting like the pre facelift.
No, for example, like with ours, the reason why we also Subaru Motor Image gave us a 300,000 discount. So, that was a big factor.
so I guess
Exactly.
as buyers, it's really boils down to price, no? That's what I'm
Yes.
noticing.
Most people, yes. Of course.
Yeah.
Like I'm putting myself in the shoes of the consumers.
Yeah.
Because ours we're like car geeks. We're into like the techs, the the mechanical side of it. But like for the regular consumer, they would look at the prices. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm aware that some manufacturers give out discounts on outgoing models, on the pre-facelift models before they release, or after, even after they release the facelifted model. And
Yes, you're correct.
if there's like 100,000, 200,000 discount, I think I would go with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
All right,
same.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through some of the things that people don't know that we found out. Okay, for one, I was told that the most valuable consumer is that guy who buys early, the early adopter. They are the most loyal customers in the mind of, let's say, this one car company. Because I was asking them, why do you not tell people that you are changing the parameters of driving by changing software or by changing things? And one of the very, very interesting things they said was that if, for example, you are going from an early adopter to you're making this a facelift, okay? One of the reasons they call it a facelift is because they do not want to alienate their first buyers who might think, "Oh, I should have waited." Okay, which
Yeah.
never occurred to me. It
Yeah.
never
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
occurred to me. But
listen to buyer remorse.
and
Yeah.
then their answer is, "Yeah, but this is just a headlight, or this is just what,
Yeah.
or if you want the stereo, we can sell you a stereo, right?"
So
So
exactly.
so
it's a
okay, that's
marketing
interesting.
thing as well.
It's a balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
They
about-
have
I
to
hadn't
make
thought of
sure
that.
that the previous buyers don't feel alienated. At the same time, they want people to know that, hey, this is a big deal. You should buy it.
Yeah.
No, like
It's a marketing challenge.
yes, it is.
example, our
I haven't considered that. I haven't
No,
considered
I
like,
didn't.
in all my years. On all my years, I haven't considered that reason.
Yeah.
Um,
Because if you think about that, the first buyers are usually the more loyal ones, right?
yes, that's
So you
what
gotta
True.
take care of them
True, that's
also.
true.
that didn't get to me
Yeah.
either, honestly. It didn't, and they're not necessarily the car guys. Okay,
Exactly.
they're not necessarily the car guys. A lot of the car guys know. Yeah, wait a while, wait a couple of years. So these are just the guys who the brand loyalty. They say, I've had in court. I always wanted a court. I'll always get the new
Well,
court.
Yeah.
That's why one of the questions that I get, or one of the most asked questions that I get is, "Hey, do you know when the next model of this is coming out?"
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
yeah.
Because they want to make sure that they're not buying a car and then 6 months or a year down the line it's going to be replaced. So
Yeah.
people are trying to actively avoid that.
My dad
Well,
used to ask me that all the time before.
Yeah, people ask that, but nowadays, okay, one thing, whereas we know, let's say a car was launched globally, we might not know when it's launched locally because there are car companies that will wait and not even talk about the new car until the last ones are sold and out of the dealer. We got to remember, we aren't buying cars from Toyota or Honda. We're buying cars from a dealership.
That's also
The
true.
car brand sells to the dealer. The dealership has to sell. The dealership will not possibly order cars until they've sold their last ones or until they see the end. So that's why you have these
True.
changing schedules for launches.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the middle part of a life. And we found this in particular with cars. My example is Lexus, because there was a massive change in basically just the software tuning of a Lexus IS in the previous model life that was so good. It changed the car completely. It moved the car up a whole nother level, and it fought against the BMWs and so on for handling, which is very unexpected. But yet they didn't talk about it. And we talked to the engineers, and we talked to the people who communicate with the engineers. And they said, guys, the engineers don't tell us this stuff.
I think because of like what Chris said, it's a
Their
marketing
answer
thing
is
also.
we're just constantly making changes. So
Oh.
everything they do, if they can find a change that, now what's this Lexus? Okay. But if they find a change that they can make that's more positive, they will do that. So they might not even communicate it. Also, let's just put it this way. What if you bought an ISF early on and you suddenly realize, wow, this one's way better?
Yeah, if I was in that buyer spectrum, like
Yeah.
I buy the car and then next month, oh, we have a new ISF facelift and it's way better than the previous one. I'd legit feel bad.
But look at what the Panamera just got launched, okay, and it has some significant changes in handling. A lot of the changes nowadays are really software more than anything else. But one of the big changes with the Panamera, as an example, is that they've kind of moved up their hybrid to a seriously higher performance level. So that's a big difference. But that's a whole different market, right? That's not going to bother anyone who bought the first Panamera Turbo.
Now, I was going to say the opposite happens as well. If we're talking about facelifts, there are times when the facelifted model is less popular.
Not as good.
Correct. Correct. And there's also something people don't realize, which is the launch specs might not always follow through. And we're going to be watching, because there's one where we have been told that the specs of a car we recently featured will not continue on. So buy it now if you want. Now that's well, that's the thing. So we got to look and see. I mean, will there be 7 airbags, or will there be 2 airbags?
Does that actually happen where they
happens.
reduce the spec? Oh yeah, it has. Yeah.
Yes.
We know it
has.
does.
Yeah.
We know it does.
Yeah.
And here's the
I
problem.
think we can mention it.
Well,
You can give
anyway,
examples.
But the point is, this
Yeah.
happens and we don't know about it. Okay.
Yeah.
The point is, this happens, we don't know about it, and we can't necessarily blame the car companies, because the people would rather see leather seats and Apple CarPlay, guys, than 7 airbags.
Yeah.
So, by
but
the way,
of course-
Paul actually asked a really interesting question. If you have a knee airbag, does that automatically mean you have 2? And Nick's answer was no.
Usually it's just one. Because when you put airbags, from what I know, it depends on like the seating to be a certain standard. So they do it on the driver because he'll be like, his legs will be fixed on a certain position. You can't say
That's
the same for the passenger.
Okay.
That's why they don't put any airbags on the passenger side.
Well, we did look at, we had this discussion a while back where we said, it says electric seats. I'm like, yeah, but that wasn't true. They said electric seats, but there was only one electric seat. So
The driver.
as much as
That's terrible, though.
it is,
That's really
I
That
honestly
misleading.
happens
Yes,
quite
that was
often
wrong.
these days.
And that same company said something that I think was previously it was very unclear. They used never mind. But the answer is always check your specs. Okay, so go into the car.
Always check the specs. Yeah.
Yes.
Even check if you're unclear on something that's very crucial. For example, we're seeing this nowadays. You have, and this is also a mid-model year possible change. You have a braking system that says emergency brake warning. You've got to be really clear, because sometimes they're going to show a video of the brake light coming on or the warning light coming on, and then the car braking, and that might make people think that the car automatically brakes, like for example the Subaru Eyesight or some Lexuses. But
Mhm.
that's not the case. You gotta check because
Yeah, you have
sometimes
to really check.
companies are so detached from what they're actually producing that they don't know. It's in your interest to know, is that car going to stop automatically or not? And even when we ask them these questions, it's not always clear. So check them out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And
okay.
actually,
Go ahead. Go
Paulo
next.
brought up Paulo brought up something really interesting, and parang it just recalled in my head, where Paulo said that like when he was not part of the industry, when someone would say facelift, he'd always think like it's the same car mechanically. And like one
Yeah.
perfect example is actually the Ford Focus. So in the mid lift or the facelift of the car, they actually changed the engine and transmission, but no one knew.
Mhm.
Like, and even
Yeah.
if they, people would review it then Ford would market it, no one knew. Like for some odd reason, like they thought it was the same transmission and same engine. So it happens also na like the information isn't disseminated properly, no matter what you do.
Well, there
And this is
are
Ford. This is
there's
Ford,
a
right?
Yeah, the Ford's
Okay.
Focus.
Okay. Now the Focus is a car that, and we were involved in this industry when it came in, and everyone was pro Focus because it was just this great car at the time, right? Everyone wanted to come in. It didn't initially do as well as people thought it could, but it's been around for a while. But that's an example of that change. For example, it might be because, and we do see examples of this with Ford again, where the initial transmissions just really weren't as good as they thought. So they make a change. Maybe they're just trying not
Yeah,
to focus on, yeah, they messed up. I don't know.
yeah. But like people
You know.
didn't respond to it. That's like the sad part. Like I remember test driving both, and I'm like, the transmission's really good in the new engine, the 1.5 EcoBoost. But no one just never
Well,
crossed anyone's mind.
well, but what are they? This is the thing, and this actually bothers me. They're just trying to sell their brand or their badge. They might not really be. They just want to develop that following, which is fine from a
Yeah.
business point of view. It's fine, but I would rather have them communicate. If you go to like, okay, go to Lexus, you go to Porsche, you go to Ferrari. When they give you a setup on what they've got, what their specs are, it's like this thick sometimes. You'll spend 3 hours doing um, specs on a new engine.
Ah, yes, I've been there.
We lost Gerard.
oh okay.
Getting
Is
him
there?
back, yeah. Okay, but there is advantage also for buying like when the cars launch. There's also an advantage. And the trend I see is usually, especially nowadays, they always show introductory prices. I guess
Yeah.
this is the way
Mm.
to convince early adopters, because you can always wait for the last call. But in order to bring in the early adopters, they usually sell at the introductory price. So example, like the one example I have here is the Subaru Forester, the current one. When it was launched just last year, you can get the entry level one for 1.6 million, and then the top of the line models 1.8 introductory price. Now the base model's gone, and then the highest trim level is 200,000 pesos more expensive.
Hmm.
So there is
Well,
an
what
advantage also to early adopt.
what about towards the end? Okay, and one guy in the car industry who is a car guy actually says, I only buy towards the end because I know everything's been sorted out and I know that I'll have no issues. And this guy is within the car company, so he knows exactly what the issues are.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there are people like that, and this person doesn't
Sure.
care that he's
Yeah.
gonna lose second generation, third generation, all of us. There's
Yeah.
automatically a loss because of depreciation, right?
Depreciation, yes. Correct.
Yeah.
But all the issues are sorted out, and they say it's the best version of the
That's
car.
Yes,
true. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Like so if you look at the Hilux with the Android Auto Apple CarPlay, it sounds like if a next generation is going to be launching this year, it has like the standard equipment of
Hmm.
the next generation because it's in
Yeah.
between. Yeah,
But
that's another advantage.
I actually remember when we got our Civic in 2007. A few months after, Honda came out with stuff like speed sensing door locks, fog lamps, which, especially the speed sensing door locks, my dad wanted that. So unfortunately, had we waited there again, had we waited, but
Okay.
yeah,
So it's really a balancing act.
yeah.
Yeah, and now more than ever, we're going to have these changes because the technology is starting to come in. What used to be a non-issue, speed sensing door locks, is now a massive
Mhm.
issue. It's also an issue in your own family life. For example, Chris might
No,
suddenly
like
realize, I better have
yeah,
door
no,
locks
like
that
my dad.
unlock automatically.
Yeah, very
Get
true.
to lock the door. So it's a very important feature.
See, one of our problems in this group actually is that because we keep driving different cars, honestly, sometimes we forget to lock the cars because our own cars might have
Yeah.
sensing door locks.
Yeah, yeah,
So
That's
it's
true.
actually a
yeah.
habit we should be getting into regardless.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
what do you
Okay.
think, Chris? What do you think as someone who's, let's say, starting a new family? Would it make a difference to you? Is resale? If we look at the main key here being cost savings and resale value,
Yeah.
would it make a difference for you to
Yeah,
wait?
absolutely. Well, the resale value I've noticed relies more on the brand than the model. What matters more when we talk about resale value is how popular the particular model is. So if the successor is known for having problems, then the predecessor will actually have a higher resale value. In some cases, I've seen it
That's true.
happen.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah,
with
that's true.
cars that you have a heavy enthusiast
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
backing with, and they all
Following.
know their stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. For example, we can look at the Civic. The Civic started off as very enthusiast friendly, and it was known
Yes.
as a quick car. People liked it because it was fast and aggressive and had a
Yeah.
great engine. And then it got tamer and tamer and tamer and tamer. And it became
That's
more
true.
of an eco car as it went along. And it actually became less popular. And people went back to the older models. If we're talking about EG and EK, the
Yeah.
EK body types,
Yeah.
and then for a while, that happened to the Miata as well. The Miata was very, very popular, and then
Oh,
it
let's
became
get
less
started
popular.
on the Miata.
And then it became less popular, and people started to dislike the successors. And then it became popular again. Then it became
Well, it
good
became
again. But it does
okay.
happen.
That's a whole different discussion point. They became more. They
Yeah.
became happier with the newer Miatas because they actually sorted them out finally.
Yes. But
That's a long.
the first Miata was hugely
Well,
popular,
yeah.
and a lot
It
of
was
people were
hugely
saying,
popular in some markets. In some markets,
"Oh,
it flopped because they sold it completely incorrectly.
yeah, yeah." Again, it's a marketing thing.
So we have,
Yeah.
just to be clear, the Miata that was there when C started is still with me. It's an NA. I love it. I don't like the other ones, particularly the most recent one. It's a completely
Perfect
Yeah.
different car.
example. There you
Perfect
Yeah.
go.
example.
There. Yeah. But
Yeah.
and like
So
quick answer because it was getting heavier by the
Yeah,
by the generation.
Yeah,
Quick
but it's also a
answer.
better car. It's also a, and we were having this discussion on a motorcycle. There was someone who had chosen this particular funky Honda, which you should be talking about with Leonard with Maynard. But this car it's kind of a part scoot, part underbone motorcycle with 750 cc's, and someone actually competed in a race and won because it was more comfortable, it was more consistent, it had all the right stuff. So it might well be that, let's say you compare the NA first generation Miata with the ND fourth generation Miata. Yes, we all love the first one, just like we all love the first air cooled Porsches. In reality, the new ones are just better cars.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
They're just better cars. They're safer cars. They'll keep you alive. You know,
Although
it's that simple.
the problems appearing in first model examples is a very real thing. It
Yeah. Oh
happens
yeah.
in cars. It happens in tech with phones even.
Yes.
Usually, uh, it,
The
w- there are things that get ironed out as the car goes through its cycle. So
so
it's as tempting as it is to be an early adopter. Of course, everyone wants the new best thing, right? There are a lot of merits to getting the older car actually in the generational line, and with the added bonus of it getting huge discounts sometimes from dealers, as much as 200 grand to 300 grand. So it's actually, a lot of people would say it's actually smarter to get the last car
Yes.
model in a car's life than a new generation. So I don't know. As
So
tempting as it is
so
to get, as tempting as it is to
so
get the next big thing, the new nice thing. It's actually pretty smart to get the
the
last car in a
facelift,
generation.
the like so basically you're saying like the facelift is actually a good value
No, no, no.
proposition
I'm not talking about
or
facelifts. I'm talking about generational changes.
that's for another talk,
Facelifts are a
man.
completely different thing. We're talking about a
That's
car's model life, right?
no
Well,
no
the
current versus facelift. Current versus facelift.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's another
well,
discussion. But so
there's a
okay,
it's a good point for that mid-year change because then you're kind of have the best of both worlds. The car's been
yes,
Yeah,
able to be sorted out for the first three
yeah,
years, and a key point people don't
yeah.
realize is that every time there's a new full model change, there's different tech, there's different, there may well be different servicing protocol that the guys don't know yet. So they got to learn it. The service people, when you go in to maintain your car, they're not familiar with it yet. They don't know, just do this, just do that. Sometimes it takes longer. So that mid
yeah.
model life car has the advantages of that, but it
That's
still has the
true.
advantages of being around for 3 or 4 more years, so you look like you have a new car. But the key thing for here though is just buy a car you really love. You know?
Okay, no, but since we were using the Hilux as an example, I guess like to also answer the question, would as a car buyer, would you go for the one just released or would you go for the previous one, the previous facelift? And for the Hilux, we're talking about the difference lang of 60,000 pesos.
Okay. Hmm.
Paolo, you start since you spoke first.
I mean, now that you mentioned it, the difference is
60,000
60K.
lang. Yeah.
I would go for the newer one because
The
I
newer
mean
one.
the tech is huge for me. Like it has the new 8-inch touchscreen display with Apple
Yeah.
CarPlay and Android Auto. So
Yeah.
if I'm going for the top variants, I would definitely go for the new model.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Gerard? What would you go for the previous or the new one, the current or the facelift?
I'd actually go for the new one,
New one.
especially if a small price difference, because I guess the issues have been supposedly sorted out, hopefully, versus older, and then yeah, you get the advantages of new tech and the new, well, new features. So there, I'd go for the new one.
All right, what about
How
you,
about you,
Chris?
Kurt?
The interesting thing about the Hilux is it doesn't follow the same release schedules as other cars. They actually have longer lifespans. I've noticed the Hilux cars have had longer lifespans than the rest. And this generation Hilux was launched in 2015. So we're on the fifth year, which is actually
That's true.
the perfect time to buy, if you ask me. If you were to ask my opinion, this is the fifth year of a car, especially in cars with long life cycles. That's when everything's sorted out. They put everything that they could possibly want to put.
Yeah.
Um,
And they
so
bumped up the
this,
power in this one. They bumped up the
yeah,
Yeah,
power.
they've done all the tweaks. They've listened to the customers. They've listened to complaints. They fixed what they needed to fix. And the next model life isn't. I'm sorry. The next model
generation.
generation is still a few years to come still. So this is the sweet spot for me. This is the sweet spot to buy a new car. And in the case of the Hilux, so I would definitely get this if I was in
Over
the
the
in the
previous
market for a
one.
pickup. Yeah.
What about
So
you,
Nick,
Nix?
you're the pickup guy. What would you do?
Okay. Unpopular opinion, but I have reasons. So I'd actually get the previous one. No,
There you
but
go.
sharing screen. But this is because this is the reason why. Because I love the TRD lock. It's not anymore available
But
on
next,
the
they're
current
gonna
lock.
have the TRD accessories for this one too. You know that, right?
I saw like some of them like in other countries. I don't like it. I like the flute grill. Yeah,
No,
I
well
like
then
the
that's the
flute
thing.
grill.
Very, very good. Buy the one
Yeah,
you love.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you
Yeah.
like it,
Yeah, yeah.
take it.
And no, here's the thing though. I totally agree though that usually on the midlife cycle, they have everything sorted out. So when I was looking at the 2015 one, you have to do the research like what are the issues, are there any, you know, and then you have to also consider you're not getting the 20 plus horsepower and almost 100 more newton meters of torque. So yeah, like it boils down to research, but the usual answer will be get the midlift for me. I'll tell people get the midlift. By then, it's sorted out. What we were saying a while ago. Nowadays, midlifts or facelifts are more than just looks. Like they tune it like Lexus.
Yeah.
They change stuff if there's like anything, like if there's any big errors. So the smart choice is going really for the facelift. But getting a car I like though, I'd go for the this one, the 2015 one.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
Toyota Hiluxes for Pete's sake. I mean, we talk about them for the last 20 years, right? So it comes down to
Yeah.
get the one you love.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You made an interesting point though. It's a 20 horsepower difference. Are you guys gonna even feel a 20 horsepower difference in a car?
Well, it's the torque. It's the bigger, bigger change here. But yeah, you have a point.
No, but
Day-to-day
as a-
use with you alone in the car, probably not. But if you
Yeah.
use it to actually carry stuff around,
Yeah.
then probably, yeah.
That's
I
a
think
good
more,
point.
Especially with the torque. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the torque is what I think you'll feel the difference for.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Okay, well, so we've basically discussed when you should be buying your car. We all have our own opinions. My opinion basically is that buy it when you love it. I think that buying first thing out is cool, but I don't think that should be as high on a priority list as you should if you're a car guy. That's my
Yeah.
opinion. I would. Nick said, for example, that he likes what is effectively the outgoing TRD model of the Hilux. So my answer to him would be buy that one because you found what you like, right? You found it
Yeah.
perfectly the way you like. You might not like the new grills. You might not like
Yeah, I don't.
these huge things. Buy what you love.
Yeah,
Chris,
but
he's
a
changing
smart-
because he's a family man,
Yeah.
so we don't know what he's
yeah,
doing.
no, but clearly,
I
I'll
don't
say
even
this
know what I
though. But clearly though, it seems to me though that clearly like getting the facelift is, especially when there are mechanical changes sorted out, that it's
Yeah.
actually the better buy. It looks like it's a
I
unanimous.
would agree with
call.
that.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Just to answer for the
Totally.
people
So-
watching.
To summarize, buy what you love and do your research.
Actually, yeah.
Which is basically what we've been saying for like 18 years, right?
Yeah.
Love and do your research. Okay, well, guys, thank you very, very much. We've had fun again. We've learned stuff we didn't know. We wonder what we're going to do next. We're not too sure yet. We might be doing.
We have a lot of suggestions here.
We
have a
might
lot
be
of suggestions.
doing. What do you buy at 1.5? We might be doing. What do you buy for 500,000 a month? We might be looking at old cars. What's your favorite old car? So.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very, very much. This is the Cars Casually Gang with C Magazine. We have got Chris, we have got Nix, we have got Paolo, we have got Gerard, and it's Carl because I keep forgetting to tell people who I am. Thank you very, very much. Be safe, be kind, and see you next week.
Bye guys.
See you guys.
Bye.